Hey, Fitzy here, back at it again with another one. Look what I got completed. I finally got around to getting that Vista Cruiser hood done. I got the two scoops mounted. I went and done the cotton butt on this here. I done some cut to fit on one side, and I done the cotton butt on the rest of it. It was tricky. Took me a while to do it, but I got it done. Stick around. Well, look what's finally made it back onto the channel. It's been a long time coming. I've been busy all summer doing stuff, and I never got around to actually mounting the scoops to the hood. I've been waiting for the right moment. I need room in the garage. I want to get some other projects straightened away first. So now we're back on this one. Basically, if you're not familiar with this build, go to this video here, and you will see the full build up on how I made these scoops from an old Chev hood and pickup hood and mounted them on a Vista Cruiser wagon hood. I got the wagon in storage, and I just brought the hood down so I can actually finish it. Some of the things that I got to do with this here now is basically I got to weld the scoops to the hood, but before I do that, I got to close these vents up. All the 442 hoods don't have vents in the back of them. And as you can see, this passes right through them. So I got to turn around and block these sections here out and basically weld pieces in there and remove them. I'm gonna remove the scoops, clean up the section here, and get ready to make a piece that'll actually go over this. All I'm going to do is cut a piece of steel out. I'm gonna do the cotton butt on this here, and it's on the back side of the hood, so it should be fine. And I'll cut that out, get that ready and cleaned up so we can actually start mounting them scoops. So here's where I'm to. I went and cut out two pieces, okay? I just measured them up, made it a little bit wider, a little bit longer on both sides, so I can overlap it there like so. This is 18 gauge steel. I have an abundance of it here. You can see along the walls here. What it is an old cabinets and shelving that I use. So I recycle everything. I like it because it's 18 gauge. It's hard to get like 18 gauge here. You can get 20, 24, and you get 16 and 14, but like 18 is not the preferred sheet that you can find in these parts. But anyway, I got that straightened away. But what I got to do here now, because there's an enclosement in the bottom side of this here, there's a frame underneath this here. I'm not going to be able to take this piece out in one large chunk. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to lay this on there, and I'm going to mark it, and then I'm going to come back a bit and cut it around. I'm going to do the cutting board on this here, but I want to remove most of this out of the way first so I can actually be able to get the piece out after the fact. So I'm going to turn around, lay this in place here now, mark it around, and cut it out. It's very hard to see, like when you lay a piece of steel over the top of it, where you got to go, okay? What I done is I marked the ends, okay? How wide it was, I marked it, and how long it was, I marked it. And I marked it just these simple lines, so when I lay this on top of it, you can actually see now, I know where my measurements to, so I can square this up, so I can say, okay, this got to come this way a small bit, and like I can eyeball it according to these lines that I have marked here now, so that I know that this is in the middle of the opening that I needs to get done. Okay, I got the lines marked on these now. I'm just going to come inside the line, probably an eighth, quarter of an inch, whatever feels comfortable, and I'm just going to blindly cut that whole section right out. So I went ahead and I got the two of them cut out. Someone's going to say, now why didn't you just, because you marked it, why don't you just cut along the marked line? I'm not looking to fit this right in there. It's a large panel. This will all be moving on you and stuff like that. I use the cutting butt for the simple reason that it gives strength to the panel, okay? When I overlap a panel, I cut along here. Nothing is moving. If I cut this to fit, okay, you can do it. You can put clamps on it, do all that type of stuff. But both panels are alive and they can move up and down. So when you add heat here, this down here can fall and it can lift up, okay? That's the reasoning for that. So all I'm going to do here now is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to clean up around this area here and get it ready so I can actually just lay this in place here, overlap it, and tack weld it in place. Got them all cleaned up, ready to weld in. The metal on the car is 20 gauge, this is 18 gauge. I measured it with the gauge there. And people say, oh, why don't you put 20 gauge back in there? One of the reasons why I always went with thicker metal, I found that you're welding and you're trying to grind it flush. So I use the 18 gauge, so it gives me room. When you grind this down on an edge along here, you'll make it 20 gauge if you grind it too much. But you got room to do it, okay? So if you started off with 20 gauge and then you had to grind, I try to grind from this panel to this panel. I try not to grind too much of this here, okay? So when I'm grinding the panel, I'm grinding this panel here when it gets down to the end of it. I try just grind the welds first, okay? And then I'll basically work back into this panel here. So I got something stronger to go by. And I know that I'm not going to grind through. So I got that there now, and I got that all figured out. I'm just going to lay that in place there like so, and get that fit where I want. And I'm just going to go around and blindly tack it in place so it's held in place. So then I can go ahead and do the cutting butt. And a lot of the early GM cars, they got a chrome strip, or it's a nickel piece is what it is, that runs along the back of the hood. You got to remove them. Some people use a screwdriver and stuff. I just like using a block of wood, or in this case a handle to tap it off. It only comes off really easy. It's not held down with no screws, nothing. It's just pressed fit. There's a piece of chrome, no damage. Now I did a quick test fit on the panels. The back part of the hood here had a very, very slight crown on it going both ways, but it's enough that I can actually just push the panel down and hold it in place and it'll actually take the shape of it. So I'm not too concerned about making this panel fit perfectly. I tweaked it a small bit so it just laid flat. My welder, what I'm using here is 023 wire with CO2 gas. Some people use a CO2 argon mix. To me, it's either or. I'm only doing sheet metal work, so the CO2 works good. Here, this is cheaper. In your neighborhood, it might be the CO2 argon mixture might be cheaper. Okay. As for settings on the welders, I have a video for that. The biggest problem you got, me telling you what settings are on my machine and what machine you got, they vary. You got to fine-tune your own machine for your work to go through, so I won't be going over that. But on this Miller-Matic 140, I have it set up. I got it set on a little less than 3 and on about 65, okay? But like other machines might be totally different. This is the settings that I usually do a lot of my 18 gauge metal on. It's nice and comfortable. So I'm going to go ahead now and just tack this in place. And the reason why I tack it in place, and I don't try to do the cutting board or whatever, I like the panel to be exactly where it's going to be, okay? And what I'll do then is I'll just tack weld it on in place around here, and then I'll go back and I'll cut through the tacks to actually drop the panel down so that it's flush, okay? So now I went ahead and I got 2 of them tack welded in place, okay? And I got the overlap and everything on. So what I'll do now is I'll come back and I'll start on one corner and I'll start cutting it. Now, I want to let this cool. I'm always touching the metal to let it cool to its natural state, okay? And basically let it cool down to where it's basically not hot anymore, not even warm. You can cool it with a blowgun. I usually do that on other panels. When I'm dealing with a hood, I find it very hard. You could shrink metal by blowing cold air on it, okay? Things shrink a lot quicker. So if you start welding this up and start shrinking it, starts welding this up and starts cooling it really fast, you're going to warp this up out here. I like to take my time, work my way around it. It's a very slow process. It's one of the reasons why I've been putting off this hood, because it's going to take me a bit of time to weld these scoops and these panels into this here. I cannot rush it. The heat, I can only put so much heat into this hood. If I put a bit of heat in it here, and moves over here and puts a bit more heat in it, a bit more heat, works my way around, and comes back and starts putting heat into this again, I'm going to run into trouble, okay? I'm looking for the less amount of body work I can do after the scoop is on. It gets very impatient when you're welding this stuff, especially on a hood. You got to take your time. I'll go ahead and I'll start cutting this and I'll weld it and I'll let it cool down, okay? I'm not going to rush this, getting this cut and butt and get this straightened away that way, because I want it to basically come back to room temperature so everything is normal again, and I'll move on and do some more of it, right? So I got these here. I got both of them done. I got both of them cut and bought down inside the panel. These are the sections that came out. People have asked before, you do have troubles every now and again. That's the reason why I try to just weld so many times and weld over ones that you already have welded. Because when you cut through it, it's got a tendency to fall away from it. But if you start welding up too much, I did it over here, I start welding between them, and I had a lot of troubles getting this one out. And this one here, I had troubles in this corner here because after burning through and I put a bit more welding down here, and because I did that, I had a hard time breaking this clear. It's going to happen, right? Just take your time, you'll get them out. As you can see, I got the pieces out. It's not a problem. So now I got to go ahead now and start welding this up. I'm going to take my time welding it up. I'm going to mark it first because I don't think I need to weld it across here because I got to cut this through here anyway, right? So I might just weld up the bottom side here, up along the side here, and just weld up so far into it so I can go ahead and cut it out after it anyway. And that way I haven't got to worry about heat up on this end of it. And where this is close to this here, this is close to this here. This is not so bad either over here. This is probably my biggest place to worry about, but I should be able to do a good job on basically welding this up without getting too much warpage because it's tight to another object that has got a shape to it. So I'm going to go ahead now and start welding these up. I'm just going to weld every inch. I'm going to naturally let it cool down, okay? I'm not going to get into blowing it off with a blowgun because I'm afraid I'm going to start moving metal around on this hood. So I'm just going to take my time and get two of these welded up. So I went ahead and reinstalled the two scoops. Put a couple of clecos in them around the four corners of it, and I went and marked it along the panel so I knew where it was going to overlap to, because I'm probably going to leave a small section of this here, so I'll know then how far back I got to weld on both sides here, so I don't even need to weld across there, which is good. And I also marked it all the way around so I got an idea of where it was going to lay, so that way I can get ready to mark it out where it's got to go, and I can cut it off and cut the center out of it if I'm going to do a cutting board. And the problem I'm having is that when I start cutting this, I'm going to run into an issue with everything getting flimsy on me, and the strength is in the center of the hood, so I might just cut so much of it so it'll make it easier to get the panels out, and I'll figure that out when I start sizing things up. But for now, I got that done, and I'll go ahead and get two of these welded up. So you can see here now the marker where the scoops are going. You can see marked out on the hood here. So I got that marked out, so I'll probably just weld up to probably here somewhere. And I ain't going to weld across here because it's just going to put heat into it and distort everything up. And it's going to be cut out anyway, so I'm probably going to end up cutting this back to here somewhere. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead now, start welding this here, start over here and start working my way around, doing two of them at the same time, because the reason why I'm doing two of them at the same time, because I don't want to just be concentrating on one panel with heat. That way I can do two, and by the time I get this one welded, this one here will be close to cool down. But I'm going to let them cool, okay? Naturally, I'm not going to put no cold air or nothing on, blow any air on them, put water on them. People have asked me before in the past about cooling it down with water, okay? The problem you got with cooling it down with water is you're contaminating the metal. You do that when you're doing shrinking and stretching and stuff like that with oxyacetylene, because you're using it to cool that way. But when you're MIG welding, the metal has to be clean. When you put water on it, you got to dry it all off, and because you're contaminating the metal to MIG weld. You can't weld. You can't weld a very good wet metal, right? So I figured I'd just point that out because a few have asked about it. Cool air is probably the best way to do it. But what I'm going to do with this here is just let it cool naturally, so I can control the metal better. I'll just take my time welding it up. Now, you see me here, I just welded all this up here. I just come back to it now and I touched it, it was really warm, so I'm just going to leave it alone. I'm going to let it rest for a while. You see me going along, welding every inch. Now, talked about it before, fellas don't like welding corners. They don't like it when you have a corner like this here, okay? If you watched me welding it, I never welded the corners, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to work my way to the corners. The problem you got is this circle here, this area here. I've said it in I think it was one of the last videos I talked about it. The problem you got is if you treat this as a straight line, and this is a straight line, you come down here and weld here and then start here and weld in here, you're putting way too much heat in this corner, okay? And that's what happens. It ends up falling away from you. So basically, I come down, I'll skip the corner, and I'll come over here and I'll skip the corner like that. And what I'll do is, as I'm welding it up now, I'm going to walk myself to the corners here and walk away from the corners here this way, right? So that way I got the same amount of heat in this area here as what's in here, okay? Because if you weld too much on these corners, you're going to end up getting this corner either going to drop or it's going to raise up, right? So I'm going to let this cool off there now. Still a bit warm, still to touch. I'm just going to naturally let it cool down, and when it does, I'll weld it up again. So I got it welded up pretty well all the way. Now I come down to, I got this corner left to do. I got 2 or 3 spots to do over in this corner. Everything else is done all the way around. You would want to turn around and bang the welder into all that and weld all that up. Don't do it. Okay? Trust me, if you wants to ruin this right quick, just bang the 3 holes in that and watch this corner fall away from you right quick. I could see this moving every time I welded it, and I just left it alone. But like I got it all welded there now, and there's not a bit of warpage in it nowhere. None. Okay? And it's just basically leaving it alone, letting it cool on its own, just tack welding as I'm going, taking my time, and I just gotta let it cool down a bit more because this corner's still a bit warm. And get this corner here welded up, and then that's all ready, and I can get grinding it. So I went ahead and I finished off that corner, took my time one at a time. I probably here 10-15 minutes or more just waiting for it. But the time you spend doing this basically welding part here and taking your time and not rushing it, the less work you'll have after, okay? That's the easiest way to describe it, because you can actually weld this all up and grind it all off, heave the fiberglass and the filler into it and be done with it. I like to try to have it half finished, half sensible. I'm very pleased with the way it came out. Very little or no warpage that I can feel here on anything. So I'm going to go ahead now and grind all this down. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to grind the head off of this here. And basically, when I get down so far, I'll start from this metal here and I'll work my way into this metal. I won't be hitting this metal very much because this is thinner than this. So that's how I usually finish it off. There it is, all grinded up. I just done like as you've seen, as I grind it from here onto, or basically the weld first, and then I basically tapered from this metal into that metal, and just watched it that I never grinded this metal too much. As you can see, like all I got is the grinding marks here from the area that I grinded. I never got foolish and grinded everything crazy. There's just still a couple of small spots here, small hole here that I missed, and whatever. There's a spot. Where's 2? Right here, another little spot. Over here is a spot. I'll go back and I'll redo these again now, and same process. When you're grinding flat panels like this on a hood, watch your heat as well, because the grinder actually produces heat, and if you grind it too much, it'll start to move the metal, and you can actually see it, because when I was grinding this over here, it was starting to move on me, and as I got away from it and came back with it, I could finish it better again, because this panel here was pulling away from this one because this is stronger than this one, and I just kept leaving it alone, coming back to it when it cooled down, right? So that worked all right. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to get these welded up, these few small spots, and get that finished off, and then I'm going to refit the scoops again, because I got to figure out what way I'm going to do the scoops. I'm here now and I got them back sections done. And now what I got to do is I got to start fitting for the panel. Now I know when I get to the scoops with it, I'm not going to be able to strip this down. I've been playing around with stuff here. I can't find my old oscillator. I had an old style oscillator that I used to use for stripping and I can't seem to find it. I got this large one here with a 40 on it. It takes too long. I got the regular palm sander, which to me is extremely, it's for finishing more than anything else. It's no good for stripping stuff like that. Been using 40 paper on it, trying to strip it off, and I just went back to old reliable, my air grinder with a 24 on it. That's wore. There's not a new one on it, and all I'm doing is I'm just taking the layers of paint off it and just knocking the head off the paint. I'm trying not to get too far into the metal, and that keeps the grinder moving to strip it. Now you could strip it with paint stripper, all that type of stuff. Being a bodyman for a lot of years, one thing we're always taught is doing things fast, and I've always tried to find ways of doing things fast. I got no patience for when it comes to trying to strip this and sit down and wait for it to strip and everything with strippers, and it's messy stuff to use, and there's different ways of stripping it. This here 24 is probably too aggressive, okay? The 40s are better. I think if you had a 36 on this, it'd be better off. I'm used to using this, so if you're going to do this here with a grinder, do it with like a 36. The air grinders, this here is too harsh and drives too much heat into it because the way it spins is I don't know what the difference is between this and this, but I find I have more control over this here. I can slow it down. This here is one speed and that's it, okay? I just figured I'd show you that there before I went ahead and stripped it all off. As you can see, it just turns into a powder. It all turns into, it is messy. It is very messy. There's a number of different ways of doing it. For this one here, all I'm doing is I'm stripping the outer edge of it because I got to remove the center section. I'm seriously thinking about doing the cutting butt on this and see if I can do a cutting butt right down the center of a hood. So, but I got to get it all ready, and I got to strip all the paint off the entire section that I'm going to outside the panel. I might end up, by the looks of this here, end up stripping the entire top of the hood. Might as well just do it and have it done. So, and that way, that much of it is done. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on like I just showed you. It's boring. You don't need to see it. Stripping it. I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of this stripped off. Well, that's done, finally. A lot of you might think that's very aggressively done. I've done this a lot of years, and as you can tell how fast it removes it. Chemical strippers, one problem you're going to have on these 70s GM cars, this green here is what they call a lacquer-based paint. That is extremely hard to get off at times with paint stripper. A lot of times it'll just take it down and you'll still see the whole car still be green with the stripper on it. It's very hard to get off at times. This stuff here, it looks like an old enamel or whatever was on it. That would come off very easy. It's extremely dirty. How aggressive this is, these grinding marks are, you could sand this with 100, this should be pretty good, okay? I had to do this because I got to do a pile of welding on the sides of it, across the front of it and everything. I still got to strip the front off here. I'm not going to get into that because I got to take the chrome off it. But as you can see, it takes it off fast and it's quick. I wouldn't recommend it to a certain degree. I'd probably go with a 36 or something like that. This was a bit aggressive. Like, I wouldn't do a whole car like it. Certain times I go at it, I do it, is what I got on hand here right now. Every other way that you're going to do it is extremely slow, okay? Paint strippers, oscillators, 100 stickets, 80 stickets, it's going to be extremely slow. It's extremely slow to remove paint off a car over the years, and I've always basically, tried to avoid as much as I can. Most of the time I had it solder blasted. That's probably the best way to strip a car, is have the whole thing solder blasted, get rid of the paint. For the cost it's going to cost you, because by the time you spend all the time with grinders and everything stripping cars, it can get very costly. But this will be fine for me. So I went ahead and mounted the scoops back on again. I went around and marked it all, okay? So then I know exactly where it's to. Now, one of the dilemmas I'm running into is in here, okay? If you look at this picture here, you can see that it only ends just inside the scoop. And then there's a reinforcement that's inside this one. I don't know if that, because it was a fiberglass hood, so the inner structure would have been different, right? Now this one here, the ribs underneath the bottom side of this car, there's nothing in here, okay? In this section here. So my plan is that I'm just going to go back in further, okay? I'm going to go back probably into here, just leave the metal in there, so that'll look a little more presentable when you're looking at it from this angle here. Because if I cut that off roughly about where that line is to there now, that's going to be a big gap going down through there. So I'm going to leave it long for now and trim it all up, so I can actually, because I got to cut this section here first, because I'm not going to be able to cut this after when I lays the scoop on and welds it on. So I got to work this entire area here first to get that straightened away. Doing the cutting butt on this is going to be a tedious thing. I'm trying to figure out, biggest dilemma I got is the whole back side of this hood. The underside frame is completely closed in. So it's going to be tricky to get the pieces out of it. So what I'm going to do first, I'm just going to cut a large section out of the center of the hood and go from there. And I'm also concerned about this up here getting extremely flimsy when I cut the center out of it. That's another problem I'm going to have too, I'm going to run into. So I'm going to take my time with this now, and I might just do one first, I don't know, and then do the other. Pick up on what mistakes I make, and hopefully I don't make too many big mistakes. But hey, that's all the fun part about it. Just trying to figure things out. So like, it's going to be a bit tricky trying to do a butt welding along here. I'd like to have this open on the front, yes, for the simple fact that I don't want no moisture getting built up in here. If I had to leave the hood section right here, there'd be a build up of moisture here. So I would like to be able to remove this. So I might cut this entire section right out of it altogether now. Just to, that's where I'll start to. I don't know yet. I haven't decided. I'm going to have to cut slits out to the sides here, because I'm going to have to take it out in sections. But I'll take the large section out first. I'm here looking at this now, so I'm just going to go ahead and get into it. And take this off now and start marking everything out and get some sections cut out of this wood. So here's what I come up with. This is the section here I'm going to leave. This is going to cut in through here and across here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to cut this down and stop about right here somewhere. So that way I can remove this after. This piece here, you can see these lines I got drawn here. This will be one piece, okay, that I'll remove. This will be another piece I'll remove. Biggest issue I got is these sides, okay? I got access right here, but from here back, I got nothing. There's no way to remove that piece, so I got to take this whole piece out in one section up to the front there. This is going to be tricky, I can tell you now. Back here, I'm cutting the corners. I can get the back here, through the middle here, I can take a section here, but I can't take a full piece out of it. I have a wide section up here that I can pull this forward. So I got to be very careful in terms of how I'm going to do this. I got to make sure that the metal is broke clear when I goes to spot weld it back together again. It is going to be tricky. I got this cut in a couple of sections here. These lines here, I'm going to put a zip blade through them out to the corners, like this here, and go right out to the corners. That'll separate the pieces. Beforehand, I'll cut these. Make all these cuts first, and get this front section dressed up where I want it that I'm happy. So that way when I puts the panel back on, and I start doing the cutting, but these cuts, relief cuts that are coming out to here, will help the panel let go. So that way I don't have to take this whole piece section out in one section. I'll have 2 or 3 sections that I got to work on. This one here is my biggest worry, is these two here. This section here and this section here, right? Because the way the bottom of the frame is set up, she's boxed in from about here back and is fully closed in. So I need to set this up now so that I can remove it. You could probably just overlap this. I'm here doing this now because it's a challenge, okay? You could probably overlap this and leave about an inch or so here on the side and cut the work split out all together if you want to do it that way. I just don't want no moisture getting trapped down in here, is what I'm trying to avoid. And so I'm going to do the cutting butt on it and see how it comes out. All right, I'm going to start cutting it up. No going back now. So here's what we're up against, okay? You see this enclosed panel here. I got access right here. I can get that piece stays there. But I can get from underneath here and over here, you can, if you look down through, you can see light, but there's a spot right on the very end here. See my finger moving? Out on that edge. I might trim more of this off yet. I was concerned about this losing a lot of strength here in the middle, but it still seems solid. I wanted to creep up on it. Same with out here. Okay, and back here there's an opening just just in behind that there. There's an opening where the original vent was that I can get at there, and that's the reason why I cut up in them sections there. So I'm just going to sit down here now and slowly think about how I'm going to go about doing this. As you can see, I cut it up as far as here, and I left the rest alone. I'm probably going to round off this edge here now, just to make it look tidy looking, and leave that there just like that. I'll probably end up welding it there to give it strength and welding it there. I'm debating on what to do back here. Should I cut these out or should I leave them alone? Because I'm getting into it there now to the inside of the hood. I might just leave all this alone because it's only a cosmetic hood, and there is really no need to like put air induction if I need into this or not. We can probably run it in through this anyway if we were going to do it, because that's what we're probably running through. So basically what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to start trimming this up a bit more. So there's a smaller piece there, and I'm probably going to do the same over here, trim this up a little bit smaller so it's a lot easier to get at. And because I can't get at nothing from back here. From right here back on the hood, that's all one solid unit for an inner frame. Usually these are all cut out, right? But I'm not going to bother with that. So I'm going to go ahead now, trim that up. As you get into these, your train of thought changes continuously because you see new problems arise and you've got to address them. One of the problems I got here now is that I can't do the cutting butt over here because this panel is flush to that, okay? So this panel, I can't push down on it when I go to cut it clear. So I got it done with a marker there now, pretty wide, and I'm going to scribe a line right along there, and that's where I'm going to start my welding to. I'm going to cut that piece out of it and do a full butt weld down through there and just butt weld it, okay? I'm not going to cut the other side yet. I'm going to do one side, get it mounted, and get it basically, I might even just weld it all up and then move on to the other side. Because once I cut this here, everything's going to go flimsy on it. This here now is going to hold the strength of this here. So this is one problem I got. So I'm going to have to remove that. So I haven't got to worry about removing that piece after the fact. Over here, I still do. There is lots of room over here for me to do the cutting butt, but I think I'm going to cut this down really small. I don't know yet because it's very hard to pull out a small piece though. So, and I can't do the cutting butt down or do the cut and fit here. It will be tricky on both sides. I got to leave something here, right? Now, I haven't really figured out what I'm going to do yet. I can't see, I can grab a hold of it up here and pull it out once I get it cut off, but it's tricky because I got to work this back here to make sure all this is broke. So this will be my dilemma. This here is not an issue, and I don't think this here is going to be an issue. This is the way this is going to be left here now. I'm pretty sure I'm going to weld that there and there, because just to give it strength to the front of the hood. That's way underneath scoop. Scoop comes here, so you'll never see it. And I figured having that flimsy like that, it's going to affect it, and it won't look right if you chop it clean right off here, because I'll see this bracing. See this hole? This bracing hole comes down here and goes across here, and I'll have that there. I could probably build something for it. I don't intend to. I just want the scoop to go straight underneath the front of it there. So I'm going to fit this in place here now and scribe this line and cut that line out. As you can see, I got a scribed line down through there now. I'm using the black marker to make it stand out more. All I'm going to do now is go down, take the grinding wheel, and I'm going to cut on this side of the line and then cut that off right along there. And then basically that'll be that one straight away. So I went ahead and I welded them 3 spots across there. I let this relax to where it wanted to, and I welded it on. And then I ended up grinding it off, welded it there, there, and there. Then I went and scuffed everything off, got everything scuffed off, and I went and put a couple of coats of rust paint on it. There was very little bit of material on this section here. Usually these panels are never even painted. There was a small bit of black paint on it, not a lot, but a lot of it was bare metal. So I turned around, just scuffed it off, and painted again. And I also did the inside of the scoop as well. Painted this because the majority of this you're not going to be able to get at later on. So I'm going to turn around and do that now and have it done, and that way it got lots of protection on it. So later on now this will be all done, the bottom side this will be all painted black and whatnot, but these are the places that you're never ever going to see, and unless you take the whole hood apart again. So I'm going to get some paint on it before I'm done. So I'm going to let that dry here now, and then I'm going to start installing that scoop. So I got the panel put in place, and I never put no clecos. I started to put clecos on this side here, and I found it was pulling the whole scoop this way. What I want to do first is I want the scoop to be pulled this way. So what I'm going to do is I got to weld this along here. The gap was opening up too much for me when I was putting the clecos on this side here. So what I'm going to do is, because I already got this cut here, I'm going to take my time and I'm going to weld this section up here. Now if you look down across it, it's kind of up and down spots like that. I'm not going to touch the high spots because that's on this panel here. I'm going to concentrate on the low spots. Wherever I find a low spot, I'm going to turn around and weld it. Now usually I would start from one end or in the middle and work my way out. The problem I'm having here is that it fits nice on the outside edge and it doesn't fit nice in the middle. And when I push it down to fit, the problem it runs into is the gaps open up. So I got to play around with a bit. I think I'm going to start down here and weld so much down here and weld so much down here, or just back here. Yeah, weld this much here, so I can get the whole 2 panels as one, and then I can start working the middle. Because when I push this down on this panel here, it's too high. As you can see, it starts to open it up. See? So I want to when it opens it up, it pulls it away up here. So when I get this welded up here, because this is all flush mounted here now, and flush mounted on the back side, I can work on this section here. So this is all I went and done. I got the fit good down here, so I went and turned around and I put a few tacks in it. Now up here in the front, in the middle, it got to be worked a bit. Up there was fitting good, so I tacked that as well. So I'm going to go ahead now and start working this in here and put a few more tacks in here and there. So this side here has got strength, the full length of it, every 2 or 3 inches. That way then I'll start clicking this bed down and start working my way around. I'm going to cut the piece, put a few tacks on it, see if I can take the piece out and work my way around the panel so I can get this so it's actually fully cut and button place. So now I got it every 2 or 3 inches, tack welded in place. I'm happy with that gap. I'm happy the way it's nice and flush mounted and everything. That was a worry of mine. I got that straightened away. So now what I got to do, I got to figure out why I'm going to do this. If you follow me in a lot of my other videos, I usually weld everything on first and then cut through the welds. I'm concerned about getting metal out this time because of the access hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at where I ended the weld here. She's cut off to here, but right here, this is metal underneath this here. So when I start cutting up along here and cutting this out here, I'll start fitting it and basically welding it. I'm going to leave it alone. I'm not going to weld nothing here, like push down and weld on it. I'm going to take my time and try to cut it. So that way when I cut through the bottom piece, it's let go. And all I got to be concerned about is the few welds that I put on it. I'm going to want to put a couple of welds on it, very little as I possibly can, remove the piece, and then go back and then put more strength in it like that. Because that's the biggest thing I'm after now is to get the pieces of metal out of each section, right? So I'm going to start here or here. I'm going to start right here because the front is pretty critical to get the front to fit right. So I'm going to start here and start cutting down here, cut across here and into here. As you can remember now, I got her cut off into here. So I got to work my way back to that. I'm not worried about none of that in there right yet because it's still a bit of a gap there. So I'm going to start out here and start coming forward. Well, wasn't that fun? I got the piece out, and I got to put in. I got it flush mounted all the way down around. In here is all done. I got a tack weld in a couple of spots. I'm gonna leave it alone. I can see the heat going on there. I got a little small spot right here in this very corner, where I was doing the transition there. The corner on this here was too low, and I pushed this down to it and welded it up. That's it. So I got a cut there now, and I got to straighten up. So I'll fix that after. So I'm gonna go on now. And I'm going to continue on and do the same thing over here. I'll get this one cut out, and then I'll bring you back down. I'm going to see how much trouble I'm going to have with that one, that side there. That's going to be fun. So that's it for the two of them. I got this one here cut out, got the piece taken out, and got it all tack welded in place. What I ended up doing is a small area. I ended up cutting it completely, taking it out of it all together, cut the fit. Because if I had to turn around and start spot welding along, I was afraid I was going to weld this on. So I'm thinking more along the lines of what I'm going to do here now as well, is because I got this long side to do. What I'm going to do here first, I can get at all this up here. So I'm going to start from the back here and I'll work my way across here and get this to this corner here. So all I'm left with is that long one there, and I'm going to try and see if I can just run a zip blade right on down through all that and get the piece out of the way, and hopefully it doesn't move too much. If it starts to fall on me, I'll turn around and I'll start welding it in a couple of spots, just enough so it won't fall no more. So I'm gonna go ahead now and cut this one here and get that one there straightened away. Remember them relief cuts that I made? I made one there, one coming out the corner there. You see another one right here, and there's another one over here. These are cuts that I made in across the panels. Make it a lot easier to get the thing off. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna cut to here, cut to this one here, see what it does. And what I'll do is I'll probably tack weld it a few spots, haul that piece out, and I'll cut it across here, remove that piece, tack weld it in place, and do that one as well. Do the same way, but I won't go doing the whole works all at once. I'll just turn around and do a bit at a time. So after cutting this piece out, this is the one that I had here. This is where the cleat went underneath the bottom side of it. And the problem with this is still up a good bit, okay? I managed to get it down here, so it's flush mounted there. But across the back here, all this is still holding it up. So I'm gonna go ahead and start working my way across here now, cutting that as I'm going. I am, like I said before, I'm not cutting it straight up and down, okay? I cut it at a 45-degree angle, and the reason being for that is when you cut it in this way here, you get the cut on the inside of the bottom piece. You close up the gap. And what I have to do here now, as you can see, there's no way to get a blade down through there, look, because the way I cut that. As I cut that, you saw me cutting it on an angle like that, which closes up the gap right nice. So I'll go along here now, and I'll cut this off at a 45-degree, and basically see if I can start to get this to fall down. So I cut that one out. As you can see, that it's got pretty flush mounted there now, so it's pretty good. There's a low spot right here and a high spot here, and it's a little bit of both. So as I can look underneath it, I can actually see that I can get at it. So I'll put a dolly behind it. I'm going to work this section here. So I'm going to go ahead now. You can talk about that 45 degrees. Just look how tight that is. Look, that's almost seamless there. Look, it's I'm cutting it at an angle. So I'm going to go ahead now, get a few tacks on that here, come back and work this area here. It's a slow process. So I got this all done across here, cut out, and all shaped where I'm happy with it. It's all well in place. It's a little bit off here on this corner. I'm gonna have to work that. But right now I got the clecos taken on this side here. I'm just gonna blindly go in there on a 45-degree angle now and cut that whole section out. And hopefully it doesn't fall too far. I'll start from this end and start to go down there and see what happens to the panel. It seems like it should be fine, but you can never know, right? So I'm going to see if I can cut that in one section there now so I can take that out of it. Well, there was nothing easy about that. Almost every single spot where I welded it, she actually welded this piece too. I ended up having to cut all the welds and let it all go, which I didn't want to do for a couple of reasons, because now this is all flimsy. And also, what's after happening now is the gaps after opening right up. So now I got to pull these two gaps together and start welding it all up down to the side again. But I got it out. That's it. Full cotton butt on a hood. So I'm going to pull this out now and weld them few spots up again. And that way I can start welding this scoop on. You were a bugger, you were. So there it's in there. All flush mounted. Done with the cotton butt and the cotton fit up here. And a few other spots. But I'm pleased with it. It was a bit tricky over here. Rub my hand down across that there now. That still seems good there. I was worried about that going like that on me, but it's not. By no means, nope. And across the back here. Looks good. And I'm kind of lucky I never cut the other side, because that would have been really flimsy. Now that gets this welded up, all this here is going to give strength to this here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go around and start welding this up. I'm going to weld every inch and work my way around, make sure that I got a nice fit, and weld it every inch all the way around it, so then I can start welding it up solid. Because I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to finish this scoop off all together. Instead of having a whole bunch of welding, got to grind later on. I'll do this scoop, grind it, finish it, then I'll do the other scoop. So I got everything welded, every inch, all the way around. Okay, going right up that side there. And along the back. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start here, up here somewhere, and just start welding every inch all the way around. Take my time. I figure by the time I get around it, it should be cooled down. I will let it cool naturally. I'm not going to get into using a blowgun or nothing on it. So I'm just going to sit down now and start welding every inch here with the spot welds and continue on with them. So they're about an inch apart, so I've probably got about 5 passes, 6 passes going around this whole thing all together. So let's get it on. So I got that all welded up. Wasn't bad, really, because when I started here and worked my way around, by the time I got back to here, all this was cold, right? So it worked out okay. Got everything welded up. Nothing has moved. Got no warpage time to go. I'm going to sit down now and grind all that up and get that done. So there it is, all grinded up. Now there is some little edging, little undercut sections. I'm not going to get into this one. Usually I would finish this off. This is a crown section here. I'm more concerned about the transition from one to the other. I don't want no high spots, okay? All these spots are low spots and they're not very big, okay? I'm not going to be concerned about them. I can really make more work for myself. I have a lot of time into this now. I'm very pleased with how this came out. Everything in now is basically a real nice transition from one to the other. A skim of fiberglass over that and filler, and it'll be best kind. Back here is a real nice transition, okay? The biggest key that I wanted to do with this is over the years when I done scoops on cars, you always had a tendency to overlap them and you leave the sections there. And what ends up happening is moisture gets trapped in between the two panels where you had an overlap there. And what ends up happening, this here ends up filling up with water and it ends up cracking. By doing it this way here now, this is a transition from this panel to this panel. There's nothing there, okay? I'll have to get in behind it and fill it up with paint and whatnot. It's going to be tricky to get in here, but I'll manage. I might even cut the center out of that yet. I don't know. When I turns the hood bottom up, I might cut the center out of it in the back side there, so that way I can actually get in behind it and I can spray some paint and whatnot in and around there. Get lots of material in there. But up here in front, all I did was to use the grinding stone, and then I use a die grinder to round out the inner edge of it there, so you can see where it is. Right? Like, it's not just, there's little imperfections in it. I'm not getting into that. You've seen me many times in the past on small pieces that I actually go in and I finish this off because it's so small. And the areas, we're talking about a large hood here, okay? There's a fair big chunk that I got to deal with here, and you know, I'm more concerned with not warping it up or nothing like that. I had one small high spot right here, okay? And I give it a few taps and it went down. Other than that, all this here is really, really good. I'm amazed with how nice this came out. Like coming down here, this whole section coming down here, it's got a very slight, very small wobble. Not even enough. You wouldn't even try to work it out. That's how small it is, okay? So, that being said, I got that one done. I'm happy with how it came out, so I got to move on to that one there. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and finish that one right off. So when I comes back, I'll have this hood finished. And there it is. The other one is installed. All I did on this one here is I repeated the exact same process I done on this one here. And I didn't want to change no way of doing it. You could sit down and say, well, maybe if I tried it this way or tried it that way. The problem you runs into that, I've talked about it before in other videos. When you start changing your technique, you'll actually change how everything fits. So I try to mirror what I've already done, okay? So I cut it the same way as the other side. Some people think that the way I sand stuff is really aggressive. I've always done it this way. If I'm filling something, I like to have a rough surface. As you can see, the scratch marks from that there. I like having it like that so everything can bond to it. You'll always run into a problem. You see cars with filler and everything flaking off them. The bodywork has been finished way too smooth. The filler and fiberglass needs something to adhere to, so it needs to be scratched up in order to do it. There's not much material taken off of this. It's just scratched up is basically all it's done to it, right? And this is the way I've always done it for years. And, you know, I have no interest in sanding this smooth and finish and making a nice job on it because I know what I got to get into. I'll make it look just as good. I get this filled and primed and painted. It'll be perfect. So everything came out really well. Really good. Very little to no warpage there. Okay. There's a little tiny bit of a up and down in amongst that where I made the two panels together and whatnot. But it's very, very minute and small. It's only in an area probably 3/4 of an inch wide. Going up back through that here. Out here, all this here is still nice and straight. Across the back where I welded in the section. All that there come out nice. Backs of the scoop. Okay. The transitions are always the biggest problem. I come up and start doing this technique for the simple reason, being a bodyman, if this was an overlap panel, okay, and you were welding this up, you would have a lot of trouble trying to fill this corner. Because this here would come back and over this way here, and you'd have a high spot here, and you grind it off, and you'd have it all built up. By doing it this way here, the finish is pretty close to, you know, you got very little body work to actually have to do on this. Like this will get a skim of fiberglass now over all the welds, right? And over the sides and the corners and stuff like that, just basically to make it waterproof. Right? You can still see there's some spots. I'm not going to get into it, okay? I can sit down and make this perfect and finish it all off and everything, but why? Because I still got to fill it anyway, okay? And, you know, all that takes time. The only difference from this job here and a perfect metal finish job is time, okay? I could sit down now and I can put another 40 hours into this hood, dressing all these sides, sanding it, filing it, and, you know, getting everything just perfect. But what's the good of it? I still got to fill it and paint it, okay? Everybody, anything around show machine that's around or car that's been painted, got shiny coat of paint on it, got fill around it. You know, people think that cars are metal finished and painted. Yes, there are cars that are done like that. But you would not believe the man hours that goes into doing that type of work. So I'm very pleased with this. I've been a while getting to this for the simple fact that it's a big undertaking. I actually done the cutting butt on the hood itself, okay? Hood panels have always been tricky. Warpage has always been a problem. You look down across the center of this now, that everything going up across there, that body line going up through there is really straight. It flows right nice to the whole works of it, going down through it. You can see down over there, flows right nice. So I'm very pleased with it, and I say Ben will be too. It was a big undertaking, a big job, but it came out really nice. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope the tips were good, and until next time. Still got to strip the front off here. I'm not going to get into that because it's got big chrome off. You're coming in for the inspection? Are you? Yeah. Interrupting me, as usual.